Okay, well, here we are. Moving on to step number 26 review. This one's called Belts, Suspenders, Failing to Fail, the Six Sigma Heartbeat, and How to Not Crash Your F-22. Creating Perfect Systems. And this one's all about minimizing the amount of mistakes you make in life. And mistakes cost you in relationships, and they cost you in finances, but most importantly, they cost you in time, because time is finite. And we're reminded of a quote by Seneca in his book on the shortness of life. And it says, "Life is short, but we act like we have all the time in the world." And Ty asks you, when you're flying in an airplane, how often would it be okay for the engine to fail? Never, right? You're looking for perfection, or as close to perfection as possible. And Six Sigma perfection means that for every 1 million times you attempt to do something, only 2 or 3 times do they go wrong. And he says, imagine how much different your life would be if you could lower the amount of mistakes and the failures you make on a day-to-day basis. And Ty explains another story of when he was working with Joel Salatin on Joel Salatin's farm. He noticed every day that Joel Salatin wore both a belt and suspenders at the same time. And one day Ty got the nerve up to ask him why he does that. And Joel Salatin said because the belt could fail without the suspenders, and the suspenders could fail one day without the belt. And not only is that true, but when inevitably one of them breaks, if you're reliant on only that one, the belt or the suspenders, they're going to fail at the worst time, just like Murphy's Law says. So he built in double redundancy to keep his pants up. And Ty suggests that you adopt this belt and suspenders methodology to all areas and all systems of your life, but we'll get to that in 1 second. And so after Joel explained why he wears both a belt and suspenders, he said to Ty, just remember, I have only one rule for people that work for me on this farm. And Ty said, oh, out of curiosity, what's that rule? And Joel Salatin said, you're not allowed to make mistakes. And of course, at first, Ty said, what an unreasonable request. I can't make mistakes. But then he thought about it for a second and realized expecting not to fail is the number one way not to fail. Another way of phrasing that is, expecting to fail is the number one reason for failure. The second common reason for failure is having single points of failure. There isn't redundancy built into your system. And redundancy mitigates failure. That's why you don't often hear of airplanes failing. And belts and suspenders means 2 points of failures before complete failure in the system. It's kind of like having a plan A and a plan B. It's very unlikely that both plan A and plan B are not going to work. So Ty recommends you adopt this methodology to your life, this belt and suspenders idea, this double redundancy. He says, always have at least 2 sources of income. If you have a babysitter or a dog walker, for example, have 2 or 3 of them on rotation. Don't just rely on one, because even if that person's great and it's working out great, eventually that person's going to get sick and not able to provide the service for you. And just like Murphy's Law says, it's going to be at the worst time possible. And you don't want to be scrambling around looking for another babysitter, dog walker, physician, nanny, something like that. You want to have a minimal amount of stress in your life and a minimal amount of surprises, so it will be such a relief, and it will remove worry and fragility if you already have a second or third babysitter that you've tried out and experimented with on your Rolodex, so in a quick glance you can call them and not have to worry about the first failure, because there's always a backup plan. And another example of this belt and suspenders idea is for you to write stuff down. Don't commit stuff only to memory. Have a backup plan. Ty explains that he had an employee that had a really great memory, but inevitably they wouldn't write stuff down because they were so cocky and reliant on their memory. But when their memory failed, when he had to do something for Ty, that person forgot at the worst time possible. Had they have written it down, there was a double chance that they would have remembered. And the second part of this is to build perfect systems. Perfect systems are one that require the least amount of energy to keep it going. And we're reminded that energy is the most precious commodity of all. And that's why Gary Keller in his book on the one thing says to do the hardest thing in the morning while your brain is still fresh. First things first will change your life. And next is to keep your fingers on the pulse of your business and your systems. The things that you worry about never seem to happen because you keep fires from growing too fast. You put them out immediately. One example of this is Ty measures his waist every morning 1 inch above his belly button so that he can minimize accumulation of visceral fat. If you're checking your waist every single day, or at least most days, it's not going to suddenly be 4 inches wider from one night to the next. So you're going to nip it in the butt right off the bat. And the F-22 part of the title is that F-22 pilots have a lot that can go wrong when they're up in the air. They can be shot at, they can have to eject, and so they have to simulate for these scenarios. So they have plans A, B, and C. Plan A is the best case scenario, Plan B is the most likely scenario, and Plan C is worst case scenario. And again, the example of these are for your businesses that you start, but plan for all areas: health, wealth, love, and happiness in A, B, and C. So if you're planning for a business and you're doing Plan A, it would be that it's the best case scenario. So you're just going to put minimal amount of time into the business and it's just going to grow no problem. Plan B is the most likely scenario, where it's that the business will probably work out, but it will take a little bit much more time than you think. And Plan C is that your business partner screws you over, your business goes out of business, you get a divorce, someone in your family gets sick. So make plans for these things so that you're ready to deal with them immediately. And this is not negative thinking, this is preparation. And again, if we go back a few lessons ago, prepared people are happy people. And Lao Tzu says, do what is difficult when it is easy. Make the plan before you have to scramble and come up with a plan. And there's 6 levels to the Six Sigma benchmarks. Level 1 is that there's a 69% failure rate. That's the worst level of all. That means 69 out of 100 times you try something, it doesn't work. Level 2 is a 30% failure rate. 30% of the times things don't work out. But the best is the level 6 of Six Sigma, and that is that for every million times you try something, again, like I mentioned at the beginning, for every million times you try something, only 3.4 times do mistakes happen. So at every level of your life, you need to practice belt and suspenders, F-22 simulation, and Six Sigma perfection. The questions at the end of this lesson are, at what Six Sigma level are you functioning at right now? What's the success rate on everything you attempt? What's the primary reason you're at that level? And what can you do to move to the next level of proficiency? Thanks so much for watching. See you on lesson number 27. Take care.